Hi everyone, my name is Harper Fendler. I am the cocktail resident here at Food 52, and today in cocktail class we are asking, what have you always wanted to ask in a cocktail bar? Let's go find out. Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah? Quick question for you guys. What's something you've always wanted to ask at a bar that you've always been a little shy to ask?
Why is the beer so expensive? How much do you want me to tip you?
Yeah.
What is the best way to unpop the shaker?
Yeah.
Because I can never get the lid to come out.
Yeah. Best thing you can do, near where you can kind of tell the top of the tin goes into the big tin, hit it with the butt of your palm. It's gonna pop it open. And as you hit it, you're gonna kind of grab that upper tin, give it a wiggle, and pop it off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. So we are running around the kitchen right now and asking folks what they've always wanted to ask at a bar.
Is there a drink that would evoke judgment from you?
I'm less inclined towards a lemon drop. I don't like sugar rims oftentimes. But if someone is so particular, like an espresso martini, like I want it this way, I want it with Baileys, I want it with heavy cream, it's like, no customer is annoying, ever, ever. No, 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 you're all doing great.
Okay.
Hey, any questions you got about cocktails or bar stuff that you've always wondered about?
If I'm a beginning bartender or at home and I want to start getting into it, what are some basic tools I'm going to need to get started? Like, what are the essentials?
That's a great question. So Emily asked what the best tools to buy or best tools to have around when you're first building your home bar are. Starting here on my left, we have just a simple Boston shaker. You have a tall side and a short side. So usually when you're making your drink, you're gonna build it into the short end and then take your tall side, pop it on, and now you can shake. What's nice about a Boston shaker is that it's tall. You can make a larger drink in this. You can make double drinks, and it has more room for the drink to aerate and for the ice to travel and break down and dilute the drink properly. So I like using a Boston shaker. If, however, you prefer a different style, you have these classic style shakers as well. What's nice about these is they do have this primary strainer, but whenever I'm straining a drink, I always like to have a secondary strainer of some kind, which is usually gonna be something like this. Just a simple mesh fine strainer, just to get all the little shards of ice that can form on top of a drink. If you're shaking a drink and then you pour it out and then you have just a little bit of slush on top, I think it can kind of ruin a drink. So I like to fine strain that. If you are using a Boston shaker, you are gonna want a Hawthorne strainer to go with that. So a Hawthorne strainer, it's a simple thing. It's got a spring. It fits into the top of your shaker, so you can strain into a glass just like this. So if you're getting a Boston shaker, get a Hawthorne strainer as well. And I would also recommend getting a fine strainer too. So those are the shakers. And then we have a mixing glass. It's heavy on the bottom. You can see that it's got thick glass, so it's not gonna wobble around as you're mixing drinks. As you're kind of coming around the edges, it's not gonna kick around. And it has a spout, so you can tell where it's going to be pouring from, and it makes it a lot cleaner to pour. And you're gonna need to stir it with something. So get yourself a bar spoon. I like having a bar spoon that has this bit of ribboning down it, so it's twisted. When you're stirring a drink, it turns in your fingers a little easier, as opposed to something that's just flush and clean. If you want to complete the set, get a julep strainer. A julep strainer is a nice thing. It fits into the mixing glass well. Hold it just like this, and you can strain your drinks. If you don't feel like buying a julep strainer, oftentimes your Hawthorne strainer will fit right in as well, and you can strain. So those are the vessels that you'll make your drinks in. But in terms of measuring out the liquid that you need to put into each one of these things, I would recommend getting a jigger. They come in a range of different sizes. This is an American one, so it's going to be measured in ounces. So you can stick with one larger size if you want to, 2 ounces on one side, 1 ounce on the other side, but you can also get a smaller size. So this is 3/4 and then 1/2 ounce. So speaking of measuring out your liquids, oftentimes in old cocktail books, you'll see the measurement that you need a bar spoon of something, be it absinthe, or a little grenadine, or just straight sugar. This can be your bar spoon measure right here. Bar spoons across the board are going to vary a little bit on sizes, but they're usually coming around in about 1/8 of an ounce. Last thing we're going to talk about here is this. Just a simple way to juice some citrus. This one is meant for lemons. It's a little bit bigger. One for limes is going to be a little bit smaller, but this is just a really handy thing to have on your back bar in your kitchen when you need to juice citrus. If you have a citrus reamer, something like this, that works as well. I just happen to like pressing my juice a little more. So these are all the tools that I would recommend that you get if you're just starting out in building your bar set.
I love dirty martinis with vodka, and I don't know why I like some over the other, or how much vermouth to add, or what to ask for, like extra dirty or not.
Honestly, it's probably the brine that they're using. Some bars will actually make like their own bespoke brine for a dirty martini, or they're either that or they're just pulling directly from olives. So it really depends on the bar that you're going to.
So there's the phrase like shaken, not stirred, that whole thing. What like determines if an alcohol is stirred versus shaken?
That's actually a really great question.
Oh, I have a question. Do you think the Americano is ever going to take off? That's like my new favorite drink.
I love a vermouth and soda, so an Americano is very like up my alley. I drink Camparis and soda all the time.
I cannot tell you the number of times I order an Americano and I get a coffee.
Yeah. Caesar, how you doing, man?
I'm okay.
Yeah? What have you always wanted to ask at a bar that you've always just been like, this isn't the right space, not the right time?
Well, I'm actually a big fan of a dirty vodka martini,
Yeah.
and I used to feel embarrassed ordering it, but now it's cool.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what goes into it.
You shouldn't ever feel embarrassed about ordering anything at a bar, ever. Order what you want at a bar. Don't be embarrassed. Have fun with it. Okay, so a lot of really great questions. Some of them we're gonna answer back in the kitchen. I would recommend starting with buying brands that you recognize. Not necessarily brands that people were telling you to buy, but brands that you recognize and you know that you like. I would recommend buying a couple of brown spirits and a couple of clear spirits. So I've got bourbon, rye, gin, and tequila. With this, you can do a lot of different things. They don't need a lot to go with them, and it works in a lot of different party settings. I would also recommend getting an Amaro. So I would recommend Campari. Campari goes with gin. Campari is great with soda. Campari is nice with tonic. Campari mixes really well with vermouth as well. This is an example of a sweet vermouth. Sweet vermouth plus Campari plus gin is a Negroni. Campari plus sweet vermouth plus bourbon, Boulevardier. Sweet vermouth, bourbon, Angostura bitters. Now we have a Manhattan. You can do that with rye as well. Having some bitters on your back bar, Angostura bitters specifically, really nice to have. Again, goes great with soda, goes great in a Manhattan, works just on its own as well. I'd also recommend having a couple bottles of tonic around. If someone comes over or it's been a long day and you just need something simple, have a gin and tonic. So this is what I would recommend starting out with when you're first building your bar. And then as you're tasting things, you can figure out where your palate leans. Maybe you're leaning a little more into some of the brown spirits. Maybe you start experimenting with Irish whiskey, Scotch, Japanese whiskey. Maybe you delve further into like the American world of bourbons and ryes. Maybe you're leaning on the lighter side. You like gin, start playing around with tequila, start learning about mezcal as well. A lot of different directions to go in. Not too expensive, brands you recognize, have some mixers, call it a day. Another thing that we got a few people asking about were martinis, specifically dirty martinis, vodka martinis. So let's talk quick breakdowns of martinis. Martini is either going to be gin or vodka. Traditional martini, gin. Vodka martini is popular now, so it's good to specify what kind of martini you want when you're at a bar. If you are getting a gin martini, there will be, in all likelihood, some dry vermouth in it. That is a traditional martini. If you are getting a vodka martini, it's iffy if you'll get dry vermouth in it. Oftentimes, people don't like the flavor of dry vermouth and vodka. It complements gin a little bit better. But again, to each person their own preference. Just quick bullet notes. If you ask for a martini dry, that means less dry vermouth. If you ask for a martini wet, that means more dry vermouth. When you make a martini, it's typically going to be stirred. If you ask for it shaken, it just means it's going to be more diluted. If you ask for an extra dry vodka martini, you're probably just getting a big glass of vodka. If that's what you want, cool. But just know that's really what you're getting. If you want your martini with a twist, it's probably gonna be a lemon. If you want your martini dirty, there will be some brine in it, okay? So usually Castelvetrano olives, depending on the bar that you go to, it's gonna change the type of brine that they're using. It's gonna change the type of olive they're using. So it really depends on the bar you're going to, what kind of dirty martini you're going to get. So those are the basics of a martini, both gin and vodka. All right, so Kieran asked a great question of when we stir versus when we shake. And we talked a little bit about it outside, but I wanted to get down into kind of the nitty gritty of it here. So what we have here are two drinks. They're both gin-based drinks, and I have one in a tin, one in a mixing glass. In here I have a bee's knees, and over here I have a martini. Both base spirits are the same, but why am I shaking one versus stirring? The reason I'm shaking this is because bee's knees has gin, lemon, and honey. All of those elements are very different densities. So when I'm shaking a drink, I'm trying to effectively emulsify a bunch of different liquids, all different densities, all together. So when I'm shaking a drink, I'm making sure that it hits the bottom of the tin and it's hitting the top of the tin to A, break up the ice, and B, to make sure that I'm aerating the drink. The process of breaking up the ice is going to dilute it and cool it down. And when we stir a drink, we aren't worried about breaking up the ice as much. We are really just here to cool the drink down. That's why it's also very important that when you pour your drinks, you pour it into cold glassware as well. So I'm gonna show you a couple of examples of how we should make drinks. All right, now if we look at these two drinks side by side, you can see that it is a clear drink. We were using spirits that were all the same density, so we didn't need to shake it, we didn't need to emulsify it. Then we have over here an opaque drink. Because we're using a syrup, we're using fresh juice, and we are using a spirit. So we have things of different density that we want to emulsify. So those are the big reasons why we stir and why we shake. So we had a few people asking about alternatives to spritzes. A lot of people love an Aperol spritz, but for a lot of people, it's maybe a little sweet. So I have a few examples of some great alternatives to that are near and dear to my heart. So none of these actually have sparkling wine in them, so they're not technically spritzes. Over here, we have a dry vermouth and soda. Dry vermouth, you may not drink it all that often on its own, but if you like a gin martini, you probably have a little dry vermouth in that. The notes that we're hitting, gonna be a little floral, a little bit nutty, bright, little herbaceous. And over here we have our sweet vermouth and soda. So with the sweet vermouth and soda, obviously it's gonna be a bit sweeter. You're gonna get some more baking spice notes to it. You're still gonna get a nice herbaceous quality, not quite as floral as the dry vermouth and soda. This would be a nice alternative to that. And in the middle here we have the Americano. So the Americano is kind of a variation of a Negroni. So where you have the Negroni Classic, Negroni Spagliato, you have the Americano. The Americano is Campari, sweet vermouth, and soda, no gin. So this is a nice, light, refreshing version if you are craving some of that bitter orange that you get from Campari, some of the sweet notes and baking spices that you'll get from sweet vermouth, top it with soda, garnished with a little orange. So all of these are great. These are all things that I would recommend and all things that I drink in the summertime. So that is everything we are going to cover today in cocktail class. That is the bar glossary. Part 1. If you'd like to see a part 2, leave a question down below and we might answer it in a future video. Until then, thank you all very much for watching and we will see you next time.